The stronger the emotion that you feel to some problem or some condition in your life or some person in your life, the more you pay attention to that person or problem. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy. That every cell in the body is emitting light and information. And the more orderly, the more coherent, the more cadence and rhythm there is to frequency, the stronger the signal that can carry information. And there are elements and things in our lives that disrupt and break down that energy. And in a sense, then, we begin to execute less effects on our lives. And without that energy, the body breaks down, the brain slows down, the immune system no longer regulates, digestive system no longer functions, and we become materialists, kind of living life as matter, trying to change matter. And whenever we're living in matter trying to change matter, the effect is that things that we want in our lives take an enormous amount of time. And over the years, we have done so much scientific studies and measurements on the brain, on the heart, on gene expression, on immune regulation, on the energy that's emitted from the body, the energy that's emitted in a room when a group of people come together and they have coherent energy. We've measured telomeres, if your cells can actually rejuvenate and you can elongate your life by applying a certain formula that we discovered in the process. And we only started to study all of these phenomenological things is because we started witnessing in a week-long event people stepping out of wheelchairs, reversal of health conditions. There was dramatic changes going on in a person in real time. And if we can witness some type of change in a person in real time, all of a sudden it's less that matter is influencing matter, but in some way energy is influencing matter. Now, you can't really talk a lot about energy to scientists, but when you started seeing really important changes in the brain and the heart, so much so that some of the scientists that were doing the studies thought that there was something wrong because the amount of changes in energy in the brain and the heart were outside of normal. But when we talked to the people and interviewed them, we were seeing very specific objective changes that somehow started to be a trend. We started seeing it with more and more people. But the subjective experience that they had was profound. Somehow they had a very profound internal experience that was as real or more real than their own past, their shock, their betrayal, their loss. And in some instant, their body, in a matter of seconds, began to respond to energy, to a new mind. And the stories that were told were so profound that we really started to understand that a couple things. They couldn't make their brain do that. In a sense, it was happening to them. And when we saw those kind of changes where they had sustained energy, and it was one person after the next, the experience somehow changed the way that they viewed their lives. And it was some type of mystical moment, some type of interface between energy and matter that we started to discover. And so I now know that there is a formula, an understanding that if once applied, if the person can learn it, no different than a golf swing or learning how to dance a certain move, learning how to crochet or knit, in time it becomes a habit or a skill. We started seeing people in time with practice being able to execute on command. In other words, we could say to them, "Can you do this?" And in effect, they were able to do it. Now, anything that is repeatable then becomes more scientifically studyable. You can measure it on a consistent basis. Something happens once, that's called an incident. Something happens twice, it's called a coincidence. But when it starts happening over and over and over again, now you're looking at a trend. Something that's repeatable is science. So if we give people sound scientific information, and as I've always said, science is the language of mysticism. It is science that demystifies the mystical. And as they learn that information, and if they're present and they can pay attention to it, they begin to add new stitches into the three-dimensional tapestry of their gray matter. That in fact, learning is making those synaptic connections. And just a little bit of practice, a little bit of study, a little bit of repetition, for just an hour you can double the number of connections in your brain. So if learning is making new connections, then remembering is maintaining and sustaining them. And as we build a model of understanding and we combine quantum physics with neuroscience, with neuroendocrinology, with psychoneuroimmunology, with epigenetics, person can begin to build a model of understanding, the next step is that they have to be able to explain it. If they can't explain it, it's not wired in their brain, but if they can explain it, they begin to install the neurological hardware in preparation for the experience. And if the scientific model is complete enough that nothing is left to conjecture, nothing is left to superstition, nothing is left to dogma, they understand exactly what they're doing and why. The more we understand the what and the why, the how will get easier because we can assign meaning to what we're doing. So then if we can set up the conditions in an environment and people feel safe enough to practice, if they can get their behaviors to match their intentions, they can get their actions equal to their thoughts, they can unlearn certain habits of thought, of behavior, of emotions, and begin to practice. In time, when they align their thoughts and feelings, when they align their mind and body, they are going to have a new experience. Now, the experience then causes more neurons to begin to organize into networks, into patterns, and the moment those neurons string into place, the brain makes a chemical, and that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. When people begin to embody the emotion from an experience, they are teaching their body chemically to understand what their mind is intellectually understood. So the payoff from an experience is an emotion, and it feeds the body. So in time, the body begins to change because the research in genes says that it's not the environment is signaling the gene, but the end product of the experience in an environment is an emotion, that they are actually changing their genetic future.
Now think about this. The stronger the emotion that you feel to some problem, or some condition in your life, or some person in your life, the more you pay attention to that person or problem. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, in fact, you're giving your power away to a lot of the problems in your life because that's where your attention is. If you're in a routine of waking up every morning and running through the same behaviors as you did the day before, if you wake up in the morning and you have to think about your problems to feel the emotions that are connected to those memories of those problems are old circuits in your brain, and every problem has an emotion associated with it. If thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel is your state of being, most people's entire state of being is in the past. So then once they're living in the familiar past, we can know by fact that they're going to be in a predictable future. So then how do you get a person then to lower the volume to those emotions so that they can begin to take their attention off the problems in their life, and it's their attention and anticipation of how they expect it to show up that keeps their observation from a quantum model, the reality being the same. So then, it's not your personality that's creating your personal reality, it's your personal reality that's creating your personality. You're at effect of your environment, and your environment is actually controlling your thoughts and feelings. So if you said to me, well, I'm angry today because of this person, I'm upset because of this problem, then what you're really saying, just from an objective standpoint, that person or that problem is actually controlling how I think and feel. Which means if I'm reacting to the conditions in my environment, then for the most part I'm a victim to my environment. But turning the battleship around, turning that model around, because how you think and how you feel should begin to produce an effect in your life if you were able to change it. So then people have to lay down the very thing that they've been using their entire life in the same way to get what they want for something greater to happen. So the first day is about overcoming ourselves. It's taking your attention off your environment, forgetting about your body and the emotions and pain and disease and whatever else, and get beyond that program of a predictable future and a familiar past, and get beyond the concept of linear time and fall into the present moment. And that formula then has a biological effect in the brain and body that we can actually anticipate, expect, predict when we see a person starting to overcome themselves. And after looking at enough brain scans, I saw then that people were able to get beyond themselves to move into that creative state. So when you begin to get beyond yourself, what is your environment made of? People, objects, things, places, well, your body in space and time. So when you take your attention off all of those elements, you're disinvesting your attention and energy out of this three-dimensional reality, and you're placing your attention and energy in that field of possibilities. Now, what's the relevance of that? Well, think about it. Most people are their bodies trying to heal their bodies. Most people are their personality trying to change some aspect of their personality. They're trying to create some new future event, but they're wrapped up in the routine and program of how they live their life in the same ways. But the truth is we're all stuck in these programs, and they've lost their free will to a program because they run the same routine every single day without knowing it. So then you need a crisis or a disease or a loss or a betrayal or a shock or something, you finally wake up, right? So our community of people, when they understand that they have to get beyond themselves, because when they do, now they're ready to create. They're not thinking about what they look like. They're not thinking about what anybody else thinks about them. They're not thinking about how long it's going to take. They start getting beyond those elements that keep them restrained and attached to their past present reality.